You are entering the archive of forgotten light, where esoteric knowledge, mental alchemy, and ancient wisdom converge into one living current. These words were not written to teach you, but to awaken what already remembers. Beneath every sound lies a vibration older than thought, waiting to be recognized. Listen beyond meaning to the pulse that shaped creation itself, for what you seek has never been above you or ahead of you. It has always been within, humming in silence, waiting to be remembered. Preface: The Hidden Pulse of Ascension. Long before the language of high vibration entered modern spirituality, the ancients spoke of a pulse, a silent rhythm between form and formlessness, moving like breath through all creation. They knew vibration was not something to achieve, it was something to remember. To them, ascension was not upward movement, but inward alignment, a return to the natural coherence between thought, emotion, and being. This pulse still hums within every living thing, but humanity forgot how to feel it beneath the noise. In seeking to rise, we left the ground of awareness, mistaking light for escape rather than revelation. The early Hermetic schools taught that vibration is the memory of source moving through density. Every thought creates a tone, every emotion shapes its resonance. When these tones harmonize, reality feels effortless. When they clash, life grows heavy. To raise vibration, then, was not to force joy, but to restore balance, to allow energy to flow without interruption. Yet over centuries, this wisdom fractured. Words replaced feeling, affirmations replaced silence, and spirituality became performance rather than perception. The rhythm that once guided ascension fell out of sync, hidden beneath layers of striving. Raising your vibration was never about escape from the lower frequencies. It was about reintegrating them. The ancients understood that every dense emotion is a slower form of light, the same current, just folded tighter. By embracing the full spectrum of vibration, one becomes whole. Suppression divides the field, acceptance restores it. The true ascension path moves not away from shadow but through it, revealing that illumination is the natural result of integration, not the reward of resistance. They recorded a secret known only to initiates. Vibration doesn't rise, it remembers its source. Awareness, when stilled, naturally reverts to its highest rhythm. Just as water, left undisturbed, reflects the sky, consciousness, left unstrained, mirrors the divine. This is the lost art of inner resonance, the ability to feel energy as clarity rather than emotion, to sense truth not as concept, but as tone. When you align to this inner sound, the need to climb vanishes. You realize you were never below. The Hermetic adepts also warned that striving to ascend creates inversion. Effort generates resistance, resistance lowers vibration, and the seeker becomes trapped in pursuit. They taught a subtler approach, the law of coherence. To harmonize, one must stop pushing against the rhythm of existence and begin listening to it. In silence, you can feel the universe breathing through you. That breath is not metaphorical, it is literal vibration, the oscillation of awareness as it touches matter. In that recognition, ascension ceases to be destination and becomes continuity. When awareness truly remembers this pulse, everything softens. Thought slows, breath deepens, emotions unclench. The body feels less like weight and more like instrument. You no longer try to raise your vibration. You begin to resonate naturally with truth. This is what the mystics called the second birth, awakening without effort. It happens not at the top of a mountain, but in the stillness of an ordinary moment, when you stop seeking permission to be whole. The purpose of this audiobook is to restore that remembrance. Not to teach you how to reach higher frequencies, but to help you recognize the ones already alive within you. The pulse of ascension has never stopped. It only waits for your attention to align with it. Every emotion is a note, every silence a bridge, every breath a gateway. And when coherence returns, you will see that raising your vibration was never movement at all. It was awakening to what was always still. Chapter 1. The Science of Vibration Memory. Everything in existence moves, yet not everything remembers its motion. Stones hum, rivers pulse, stars whisper across the dark fabric of the void, but only awareness can recall its vibration. This remembrance is what the ancients called the memory of light. They knew that consciousness does not create energy, it organizes it. Every thought sends a ripple through the field. Every emotion bends that ripple into form. To live unconsciously is to forget the rhythm of your own frequency. To awaken is to feel it again, to sense the hidden pulse that built both matter and meaning. Vibration is not just sound or sensation. It is awareness expressing itself through movement. When you think, you emit. When you feel, you modulate. Every cell in your body listens to these signals and mirrors them back into your world. This is why the Hermetic masters taught that creation begins not with action, but with tone. Before the word, there was resonance. Before reality, there was rhythm. To raise vibration, then, is not to reach higher. It is to harmonize the signal between thought and form until they sing as one. The ancients described this process as mental alchemy. Thought is the architect, emotion, the fuel. Together, they forge the substance of experience. When thought and emotion move in opposite directions, hope mixed with fear, desire tainted with doubt, the current fractures. The field becomes incoherent, and energy disperses. But when intention is clean and feeling agrees, the current amplifies. Life rearranges itself in response to your resonance, because the universe can only reflect coherence. You do not attract what you want. You resonate what you are. To understand vibration is to understand memory. Energy cannot vanish. It can only store, translate, or transform. Every experience leaves an imprint, a residual tone within the field of awareness. These tones layer over time, forming chords that define your perception. When the music becomes dissonant, life feels heavy. When you release the discord, through forgiveness, stillness, or realization, the tone clears and the melody of being re-emerges. This is how souls evolve, not by accumulation, but by tuning themselves closer to silence. Imagine your consciousness as an instrument. The strings are your thoughts, the resonance chamber is your heart, and awareness is the player. If the strings are wound too tight with control, they snap. If too loose with apathy, they lose tone. Balance is the art, the precise tension where vibration becomes music. You have always been both the instrument and the musician, forgetting only that the song was yours to remember. Every practice of meditation, prayer, or contemplation is simply retuning what was never broken, only misaligned. The Hermetic adepts mapped the science of vibration through geometry. They taught that each thought forms a wave, and when two waves meet in harmony, they produce structure, the architecture of reality. Manifestation, in its purest form, is resonance solidified. You are sculpting the invisible with frequency every moment you think. Energy obeys no morality, only mathematics. It follows clarity. The more precise your internal tone, the faster reality organizes around it. This is the unspoken law behind all creation. Frequency precedes form. So when you feel low, heavy, or fragmented, do not fight the state, listen to it. Energy speaks through density as much as through light. The lower notes carry wisdom that higher ones cannot hold, the gravity that gives meaning to ascent. Every vibration longs to return to coherence. Your task is not to force it upward, but to remove what distorts it. In that release, you rediscover your original frequency, the quiet hum beneath thought, the sound of being aware. That is vibration remembered, and it is where all ascension begins. Energy remembers everything that consciousness forgets. It carries the residue of every emotion, the echo of every thought, the imprint of every decision, stored not as words, but as rhythm. This is why certain memories still feel alive in your body, long after you've moved on in mind. The vibration never vanished. It only changed form, waiting for acknowledgement to release it. When you revisit a feeling with awareness instead of judgment, that memory transforms from static into signal. It stops repeating and begins resonating. The Hermetic adepts observed that vibration holds intelligence. Frequency to them was thought made tangible, awareness slowed into pattern. They knew that the body is not a cage but a resonator, translating invisible current into physical experience. Each organ, each cell, each nerve is tuned to a specific tone. Illness, they said, is not punishment, but dissonance, the body trying to recalibrate itself to coherence. Healing happens naturally when awareness returns to rhythm. The mind does not fix the body, it remembers its music. To work with vibration consciously is to understand that reality listens. The universe is not responding to your words, but to your waveform. When your thoughts contradict your feelings, the signal scatters. When they align, life amplifies the pattern instantly. This is why affirmations spoken without emotion rarely change anything. They produce sound, but no resonance. The law is precise. Vibration follows coherence, not volume. The universe doesn't reward noise, it mirrors harmony. Memory in this sense is sacred architecture. It is how the field records evolution. Every experience teaches the frequency of its lesson. Courage vibrates differently than fear. Gratitude differently than lack. You carry those codes in your aura, like rings in a tree, visible to those who can feel energy as light. When you forgive, the tone of your field changes. When you love, it expands. The soul evolves not through events, but through the refinement of its resonance. Enlightenment is simply the absence of distortion. The ancients taught that vibration obeys intention only when intention is pure. They practiced silence before every invocation, knowing that inner stillness ensures accuracy. They understood that each thought generates geometry, and every emotion colors that geometry with tone. Together, they shape probability into experience. This is the invisible science behind all manifestation. Thought as blueprint, feeling as pigment, vibration as the brushstroke that paints reality. When awareness becomes steady enough, you begin to feel these mechanics in real time. You sense the exact moment your frequency drops through worry, anger, or doubt, and you can feel it recalibrate the instant you return to calm. This sensitivity is not fragility, it is mastery. The more conscious you become, the faster energy responds. Creation accelerates when coherence stabilizes. The universe, after all, is nothing but vibration listening to itself. So begin to listen differently. Do not chase higher frequencies. Refine the one you already are. Every thought adjusted toward truth, every emotion met without resistance, every breath taken in awareness raises vibration naturally. You are not trying to ascend. You are remembering how to resonate. The universe has always been fluent in your frequency. It is you who forgot the language. Speak again through stillness, and you will feel the cosmos answer in kind. Every vibration you emit writes itself into the invisible field that surrounds you. This field, the ancients said, is not metaphor, it is memory in motion. It records everything you believe to be true about yourself, then echoes those beliefs back as experience. What you call fate is simply repetition that has not yet been retuned. The moment awareness observes the pattern without attachment, the tone changes, and with it, the entire design of reality. This is why miracles appear effortless to the aligned coherence, rearranges the universe quietly, without struggle. The Hermetic adepts described this phenomenon through light. They said that awareness, when divided by fear, refracts into color. Each hue a spectrum of consciousness, each emotion a wavelength of being. When attention unites again, all colors merge back into white, the full vibration of remembrance. Raising your vibration, therefore, is not ascending into light, but reclaiming it. gathering every fragment of your own spectrum until the field glows whole. In that unification, separation dissolves. You stop trying to shine, you simply become transparent. Vibration memory explains why some emotions repeat across lifetimes. Energy never dies, it migrates. The unresolved tone of one experience echoes forward, drawing matching circumstances until awareness completes the note. Patterns persist not because the universe is cruel, but because it is precise. It keeps replaying your vibration until harmony is achieved. This is not karma as punishment. It is correction as compassion. The cosmos loves balance too much to let you remain out of tune. Every thought you refine, every emotion you release, every silence you honor, contributes to that balancing. You can feel it physically. Tension softens, breath deepens, perception widens. The field expands as if exhaling after years of holding its breath. The body follows awareness into harmony, and suddenly, you experience presence as electricity, not agitation, but aliveness. The ancients called this the living light, the current of memory remembering itself. At this stage, life begins to mirror back synchronicities, not coincidences, but coherent signaling completion. Numbers repeat, timing aligns, messages arrive before you think them. This is vibration communicating with itself across dimensions. It is how the universe confirms that remembrance is working. The more you notice, the stronger the feedback becomes, forming a dialogue between the seen and unseen. Awareness recognizes awareness, and creation bows to its own rhythm. The science of vibration memory is not mystical, it is mechanical. Consciousness organizes matter by frequency. The higher the coherence, the faster the manifestation. But this speed demands stability, otherwise distortion multiplies. That is why mastery begins with stillness. When you can hold clarity in silence, you can hold creation in motion. The adepts spent years learning to vibrate without interference, understanding that purity of frequency is power beyond measure. And so, as this chapter closes, remember this: raising vibration is not climbing, it is clearing. Each moment you choose awareness over reaction, stillness over noise, love over control, you reclaim a piece of your original tone. That tone is your signature in the universal field, your personal harmony with the infinite. When you return to it, you realize you were never trying to become higher, you were trying to become whole. The frequency never left, it was only waiting for you to listen. Chapter 2. The Trap of Forced Positivity. The modern world worships brightness while fearing its own depth. You are told to stay positive, to think light, to keep smiling no matter the weight in your chest. Yet behind that performance, the vibration trembles. The ancients would call this inversion, when the outer tone contradicts the inner frequency. It creates distortion, not alignment. Every emotion you suppress becomes a knot in the current, a frozen note inside the field. What you hide from does not disappear. It waits, humming beneath your affirmations, asking to be felt. Hermetic adepts never taught avoidance. They understood that vibration cannot rise through rejection, only through inclusion. To them, darkness was not evil, but density. Light slowed into lesson. The work was not to deny the shadow, but to listen to its sound. The lower emotions, grief, anger, fear, are not enemies of ascension. They are its foundation. Each one carries energy that, once acknowledged, transforms into power. The soul expands by metabolizing what the mind resists. Denial freezes vibration. Awareness sets it free. Forced positivity began when humanity equated enlightenment with constant joy. Yet light without shadow is blindness. Joy without contrast loses meaning. When you refuse to feel pain, you flatten your emotional spectrum, and your vibration loses depth. The field becomes monotone, bright but brittle, shimmering on the surface while hollow within. True elevation requires dimension. Every emotion is a frequency within the total chord of your being. To reject any note is to distort the harmony. The ancients warned that false light burns cold. They watched seekers mask exhaustion with smiles, repeat mantras while trembling inside. This is the illusion of control disguised as faith. It is the mind trying to command energy instead of listen to it. The more you insist on high vibes only, the more you exile parts of yourself that long to return home. The Hermetic masters taught that wholeness, not happiness, measures alignment. Light that denies shadow becomes glare, not glow. To escape this trap, you must relearn the language of emotion. Each feeling is a message in frequency, not a mistake. Sadness whispers of release, anger signals compression, fear reveals separation. These are not vibrations to escape, but to translate. When you meet them without story, without trying to justify or analyze, they shift instantly. Energy never needed fixing, it only needed permission to move. Positivity cannot transmute what awareness has not embraced. The Hermetic alchemists used to say, "He who listens to pain hears the truth of power." They would sit in stillness, allowing dense emotions to rise, not to suffer them but to sense their texture. Each feeling, once honored, revealed its hidden charge, grief converting to tenderness, rage transforming into clarity. They discovered that suppression drains vitality faster than sadness ever could. The only energy truly lost is the energy denied. So when heaviness visits, do not mask it with light. Illuminate it from within. The vibration rises on its own when it feels seen. Forced positivity demands perfection. True alchemy requires honesty. Your task is not to replace the low with the high, but to find stillness between them, the point where frequency stops oscillating and begins to sing. In that equilibrium, joy no longer needs to be maintained. It becomes your resting tone, steady and alive, untouched by effort. The mind believes it can outthink emotion. It crafts affirmations, repeats mantras, constructs bright sentences to cover the hum of unease beneath them. Yet the body always knows the truth. The nervous system does not listen to words, it listens to tone. You can say, "I am fine" 1,000 times, but if your field vibrates with tension, the universe hears strain, not serenity. This is the secret the ancients guarded. Vibration is language, and the cosmos is fluent in authenticity only. Hermetic wisdom taught that every distortion begins as denial. When you resist the shadow, you teach it to hide deeper, to disguise itself as logic or virtue. Soon, positivity becomes armor. You tell yourself you're healed, you're strong, you're enlightened. But inside, energy stagnates. The more you pretend, the heavier the armor becomes, until even light can't reach you. The adepts called this spiritual petrification, when the current of life slows into pretense. They healed it not by striving for joy, but by softening into truth. The illusion of forced positivity also traps the collective. Society rewards the image of light more than its essence. Smiles become currency, serenity becomes spectacle. People wear wellness as costume, while the heart quietly collapses beneath performance. Yet the vibration of authenticity always exposes imitation. The body of the world, like the body of a person, grows sick when its frequencies are falsified. And so every era eventually breaks its mask through crisis, forcing truth back into resonance. This is why the Hermetic masters valued emotional honesty as the first form of alchemy. They understood that energy cannot ascend through performance, only through precision. To them, sincerity was purification. A single breath felt in truth carried more power than 1,000 mantras uttered in fear. When emotion was allowed to complete its cycle, the frequency released automatically. They knew that wholeness begins when nothing is exiled, when even sorrow is invited to the table of light. The modern seeker often fears that embracing darkness will lower vibration. The opposite is true. When you face pain directly, it stops emitting discord. Suppressed energy vibrates chaotically. Acknowledged energy harmonizes. Acceptance is not surrender to suffering. It is command over it. The light that faces shadow becomes unbreakable because it stops pretending. The most radiant beings are not those who never fall. They are those who no longer resist the ground. Emotion, when met with presence, becomes current, not chaos. This is the foundation of mental alchemy. Awareness does not banish feeling, it refines it. Every breath taken consciously through discomfort reorganizes vibration. The heart, acting as transmuter, turns turbulence into resonance. This is how low frequencies evolve, not through escape, but through coherence. The very energy that once weighed you down becomes fuel for higher rhythm. Transformation is never addition, it is reconfiguration. The next time you feel the urge to stay positive, pause. Instead, stay present. Notice the vibration beneath the thought, not its story, but its tone. Feel where the current contracts, and breathe there. Allow it to move without resistance. In that moment, you are practicing the oldest law of ascension, the courage to hear your own frequency. Every emotion you honor expands your range, turning your spectrum of vibration into a symphony instead of a slogan. Every false light eventually collapses under its own pressure. When positivity is forced, it becomes performance, and performance fractures energy. You can feel this collapse as emotional fatigue, the exhaustion that follows pretending to be fine. It is not depression, it is detox. The body cannot sustain contradiction for long. It will always choose truth over illusion. Even if truth arrives through tears, the universe does the same. When pretense fills your vibration, life responds with mirrors sharp enough to cut through it. Pain becomes the teacher that honesty refused to be. The Hermetic adepts warned that the brighter the mask, the darker the shadow behind it. They observed that those who suppress emotion often radiate forced optimism. Their eyes shine, but the light is brittle, too fragile to be real. In their temples, initiates were taught to face the darkness first, to enter the chamber of silence before seeking illumination. They believed that every soul must descend before it rises, for only through depth can height sustain itself. The false sun burns out, the true sun rises from within. To release forced positivity, you must replace the need to appear radiant with the willingness to feel real. Authentic vibration does not always sound harmonious. Sometimes it trembles, sometimes it roars, sometimes it dissolves into silence. Yet in that rawness lies power. When you stop curating your frequency and start communicating with it, energy begins to organize itself naturally. Honesty is the reset button of the soul. Every truth spoken internally, even whispered through a breath, untangles a knot in the field. The paradox is simple. Pretending to be high vibrational lowers your vibration faster than any sadness ever could. Emotion unacknowledged becomes noise. Emotion expressed becomes note. The universe does not judge what you feel. It only reads coherence. Anger aligned with truth vibrates higher than false serenity. Tears shed in honesty radiate more light than laughter performed for approval. This is why humility is the highest frequency. It requires nothing but truth. When awareness learns to stay present with every vibration, even the uncomfortable ones, energy transforms automatically. The field around you grows dense with authenticity, and people begin to feel it. They sense peace not because you hide pain, but because you no longer fear it. This is what true positivity means. Not absence of shadow, but mastery of it. The heart that can hold both joy and grief without collapse becomes unshakable. The frequency that can include all tones never breaks. The Hermetic alchemists symbolized this mastery as a chalice, open at the top, grounded at the base. To them, the cup represented the soul that could receive all vibrations without overflow. The secret was containment, not control. They whispered, "The vessel is holy when nothing spills." You become that vessel when you stop chasing the high and start honoring the full spectrum. Energy, finally allowed to circulate, rises on its own, carrying you effortlessly to coherence. And so, the trap dissolves. You realize positivity was never the goal, integration was. To raise vibration is not to deny what is low, but to bring it home. Light becomes real only when it embraces its shadow. In that union, frequency stabilizes and the effort to feel better ends. You no longer seek to rise, you simply rest in truth. The glow that follows is not forced, it's remembered. The highest light does not shine to prove, it shines because it is whole. Chapter 3: The Forgotten Law of Resonance. Long before the law of attraction became a slogan, the ancients spoke of something deeper, the law of resonance. Attraction was only its shadow, resonance was its source. They understood that the universe doesn't respond to words or desires, but to frequency. Every being, every thought, every emotion sends out a tone, and the field answers with matching rhythm. Life, therefore, is not reacting to what you want, it's reflecting what you are. This truth is not metaphorical, it is mechanical. The cosmos operates as an orchestra of vibration, and coherence is its only law. Resonance is the invisible bridge between energy and form. When two frequencies vibrate in harmony, they amplify each other. When they clash, they cancel. This is why alignment feels powerful and resistance feels draining. One unites currents, the other divides them. The Hermetic adepts mapped this as sympathetic vibration, teaching that everything in the universe is connected through tone. Thought influences matter because both exist as waves. You are not commanding the world. You are conversing with it through rhythm. The law of resonance reveals that manifestation is not personal, it's proportional. Whatever occupies the majority of your vibration becomes the template through which reality arranges itself. If you hold coherence, you meet clarity. If you hold fear, you meet friction. The universe mirrors energy precisely, not morally. This is why prayer without presence falls silent, and intention without emotion dissolves. Only aligned frequency produces echo. Energy does not discriminate between hope and despair. It amplifies whatever resonates strongest. To the Hermetic mind, this understanding was liberation. It proved that creation was not privilege, but participation. Every soul, regardless of circumstance, shapes reality through the tone it sustains. Raising vibration, therefore, is not about superiority, it's about responsibility. The higher the coherence, the greater the influence. When your inner frequency stabilizes, your environment rearranges itself to match. Mountains move not because you command them, but because resistance becomes impossible around harmony. The Forgotten Law also explains why desire often leads to disappointment. Desire carries the energy of lack. It vibrates as absence seeking fulfillment. The field hears the tone of missing, not of having, and thus mirrors more distance. The Hermetic masters corrected this by teaching embodied resonance, feeling the vibration of fulfillment before form appears. When gratitude precedes evidence, coherence forms first, and matter follows naturally. The universe does not grant requests, it organizes reflection. Resonance also governs relationships. Every connection is a meeting of frequencies seeking equilibrium. When two people resonate in harmony, energy multiplies. When their tones oppose, the field forces change. Either one shifts or they separate. This is not tragedy but truth. Vibration values coherence over comfort. The same principle applies within. When thought and emotion fall out of tune, the soul feels split until unity is restored. Integration, then, is not moral healing but vibrational accuracy. The law of resonance invites you to stop chasing outcomes and start tuning your signal. Life is not punishing or rewarding, it's harmonizing. Every moment asks a single question: what are you broadcasting now? The field listens, not to your words, but to your state. And when your tone matches truth, reality aligns effortlessly. This is why the ancients said, "Heaven is not above. It is a frequency remembered." The power to shift worlds lies not in summoning light, but in vibrating as it. The ancients taught that resonance is the mathematics of divinity, the precise equation by which consciousness arranges itself into experience. Every structure, from the spiral of a galaxy to the rhythm of a heartbeat, follows the same harmonic code. When the inner rhythm of a being matches the outer rhythm of the cosmos, the illusion of separation dissolves. This was the essence of Hermetic balance, as within so through all. They did not worship the stars, they listened to them. The sky was not distant, it was a mirror vibrating in sync with the soul. To understand resonance is to understand the secret of ease. Effort belongs to dissonance. Harmony moves without strain. When your vibration aligns with what you seek, movement becomes magnetic. You no longer chase, you gravitate. The ancients described this as the magnetism of coherence. It is why certain people, ideas, or opportunities seem to find you effortlessly once you stabilize your tone. Resonance removes resistance because it removes contradiction. The field cannot withhold what already matches its own frequency. Resonance also explains why chaos often precedes clarity. When a new vibration enters your field, the older, discordant tones must dissolve. To the untrained, this feels like collapse. Relationships shifting, emotions surfacing, structures breaking apart. But to the adept, it is refinement. The interference pattern clears so that harmony can emerge. The law of resonance always favors coherence over comfort. It will dismantle everything misaligned, not to punish but to tune you. Disruption, therefore, is proof that alignment is working. The Hermetic masters mapped this process through sound. They would strike a tuning fork in one chamber, and a matching fork in another would begin to vibrate spontaneously. They saw this as the soul's journey, awakening triggered not by knowledge, but by contact with truth. When you hear resonance, in words, in silence, in another's presence, something within you vibrates in recognition. That recognition is remembrance. You are not learning, you are reactivating what was always encoded in your field. To practice resonance consciously is to become a deliberate instrument. The alchemists trained attention as a musician trains the ear. They learned to detect the subtle difference between harmony and intensity, between authentic alignment and emotional surge. Excitement can mimic coherence, but it burns out quickly. True resonance endures. They taught initiates to listen for stillness beneath joy, that quiet hum of balance that does not fluctuate. The strongest vibration is not the loudest, it is the most stable. Resonance, unlike attraction, cannot be manipulated. It cannot be faked because energy is honest. You can act kind while vibrating resentment. You can speak of love while radiating fear, but the field only responds to truth. This is why alignment often requires solitude. When external noise subsides, the true tone of your field becomes audible. Silence is not emptiness, it is calibration. The moment you hear your authentic frequency again, life rushes to meet it. And when that meeting happens, manifestation ceases to feel like magic. It feels like memory. You realize that what you called creation was never new. It was resonance finding reflection. The universe has been echoing you all along, waiting for you to sing clearly enough to recognize the reply. This is why awakening feels familiar, because it is. Every aligned experience is not a discovery, but a return to your original sound. You are not learning to manifest, you are remembering how to harmonize. Every law of creation begins and ends in vibration, but resonance is the law that governs all others. It is the silent conductor of existence, ensuring that every note, every being, every event plays in perfect symmetry with its tone. The ancients called it the law of echo because nothing ever happens to you. It happens from you, reverberating through layers of awareness until you recognize yourself in what appears external. This is the essence of divine accountability, not moral judgment, but vibrational precision. The universe is flawless in reflection. When awareness matures, resonance replaces reaction. You no longer respond to life through emotion alone, but through frequency recognition. You begin to feel the tone behind events, the current beneath words. Someone's anger may register not as offense but as distortion. Someone's love, not as sentiment but as coherence. You stop defending yourself because resonance has no enemy. It simply organizes reality by matching density to density, light to light. Energy seeks equilibrium far more faithfully than humans seek truth. This understanding frees you from control. Manifestation stops being a game of intention and becomes a practice of purity. Instead of asking, "How can I get what I want?" you ask, "What frequency am I holding?" Desire transforms into calibration. You no longer chase experiences. You become the condition that allows them. The Hermetic adepts wrote, "To command the universe, align with it." It was not metaphor. It was physics of the soul. Power is resonance mastered, not resistance disguised as ambition. The Forgotten Law also reveals why some teachings fail. Techniques built on effort contradict their own aim. The moment you strain to manifest, you broadcast lack. The field receives tension, not intention, and mirrors it precisely. That is why surrender, not striving, precedes synchronicity. The adepts practiced what they called quiet magnetism, the state of knowing so complete it requires no proof. They did not force creation. They remembered coherence until reality had no choice but to agree. Every vibration you stabilize contributes to the harmony of the whole. The universe evolves through resonance. As one frequency refines, the collective field brightens. This is how healing ripples across space and time. Your coherence strengthens the grid of creation itself. When you raise your vibration, you are not escaping the world, you are tuning it. This is why enlightenment, to the ancients, was never personal. It was service frequency offered back to source as music. Resonance also teaches humility. You realize that harmony cannot be owned. It flows through you, not from you. When ego claims alignment, the tone distorts. When awareness yields, the tone purifies. The true master does not amplify the self, they amplify stillness. In stillness, resonance becomes infinite, expanding through every particle until separation fades into one continuous sound. The Hermetic adepts called this the note behind creation, the hum of eternity vibrating beneath thought. And so, the Forgotten Law is remembered, not as concept, but as experience. You begin to hear your life as music again. Every joy a chord, every sorrow a counterpoint, every silence the space that gives the song its depth. The universe no longer feels mechanical, but melodic. What once seemed random reveals rhythm. You stop trying to fix the melody and start listening to it. In that listening, harmony restores itself. The field aligns, the tone clears, and awareness finally understands. The universe was never echoing your words, only your sound. Chapter 4: The Alchemy of Emotional Density. Pain is compressed energy. It is not punishment, not flaw. Only vibration slowed until it hardens into sensation. The ancients never feared this density, they revered it. To them, emotion was the raw material of alchemy, the lead that hides the light within. Every ache, every shadowed memory, every tremor in the chest carries potential waiting to unfold. The purpose of suffering was never endurance, but transmutation. The soul descends into density not to escape it, but to refine it, to turn what feels heavy into something luminous. The Hermetic adepts taught that emotion is the crucible of consciousness. Within it, fire and form meet, spirit descending into matter, matter yearning to rise back into spirit. When awareness enters that crucible willingly, transformation becomes inevitable. The heat of feeling is not destruction, it is purification. The alchemist does not run from the flame. They enter it knowing that only what is false can burn. In the ashes of resistance, true vibration is revealed. Modern spirituality often misinterprets this fire. It teaches people to bypass it, to suppress anger, to label fear as low vibration, to deny grief in the name of grace. Yet nothing blocks ascension more than avoidance. The energy you refuse to feel becomes static, forming weight in the field. It loops in repetition until awareness returns to complete the cycle. The only way out is through. This is the law the ancients lived by. What you feel fully, you free. Transmutation begins in honesty. To admit pain is not to surrender to it. It is to locate it. Awareness acts like heat. Wherever it touches, vibration accelerates. This is why confession heals, why presence dissolves sorrow, why stillness melts tension. Energy longs to move. It only needs permission. When you finally allow emotion to express without judgment, it unravels. The knot in your chest becomes current again, the heaviness in your thoughts becomes space. Emotion was never against you, it was energy asking to be understood. The alchemists symbolized this process as the black stage, nigredo, the sacred darkness where the old identity dies. Here, confusion reigns, and the mind cannot see the way out. But this darkness is not void, it is womb. Beneath the still surface, vibration is reordering itself. The ego perceives collapse, but the soul perceives construction. Every heartbreak, every silence, every tear rearranges the field into finer coherence. The depth you feel is the depth of light preparing to rise. In the black stage, the seeker learns to breathe differently. Each inhale welcomes the shadow. Each exhale releases resistance. The body becomes a chamber for transformation, a vessel where pain is not exiled but embraced until it softens. The Hermetic adepts whispered, "Fire does not destroy the gold, it reveals it." So too with emotion. Grief uncovers compassion. Fear uncovers courage. Rage uncovers strength. The lower frequencies are not enemies, they are initiations. To practice emotional alchemy is to make peace with your own depth. It requires faith that even the heaviest feelings serve harmony. Pain refines perception, carving the space where empathy will later dwell. Sorrow strengthens silence, teaching the heart how to hold complexity. Every dense emotion is a teacher disguised as tension, waiting for you to stop labeling it as wrong. When you do, transmutation begins naturally, not as magic, but as memory, for all energy eventually remembers how to shine. Density is not darkness. It is unexpressed movement. What feels like emotional heaviness is simply energy waiting to circulate again. When you sit in stillness and allow it to exist, the vibration begins to shift. Tremors, warmth, tears, sighs. These are not symptoms of weakness, but of release. The Hermetic adepts recognize this as sacred trembling, the moment when form surrenders to flow. It is the nervous system remembering its natural rhythm after years of holding its breath. The body becomes alchemical furnace, burning resistance into radiance. The mind fears this process because it cannot control it. Transmutation demands trust, not technique. You cannot think your way into light. You can only feel your way into coherence. This is why awareness is the highest fire. It does not analyze, it witnesses. When you observe pain without flinching, something beyond mind begins to work. The vibration reorganizes itself around your attention. To witness is to warm, and warmth is how emotion remembers motion. The moment you stop resisting feeling, it ceases to be suffering. Every dense emotion contains coded intelligence. Fear teaches presence. Shame teaches humility. Grief teaches connection. These lessons cannot be learned intellectually. They must be absorbed through sensation. The ancients called this the school of density, where the soul matures by embodying its opposite. Only one who has felt fragmentation can truly understand wholeness. Only one who has known despair can recognize peace without needing proof. The lower chambers of vibration are sacred classrooms, not punishments. To transmute density, you must abandon judgment. The alchemist does not call lead evil, they call it unfinished gold. In the same way, no emotion is negative. It is incomplete. When you label feelings as bad, you freeze them into form. When you name them as temporary energy, they dissolve. Language, like vibration, carries power. Speak to your emotions as allies returning from long journeys, not enemies invading your peace. Gratitude turns weight into wisdom faster than resistance ever could. In the Hermetic texts, the second stage of alchemy was albedo, whitening, the purification that follows darkness. It is the phase where clarity begins to dawn. You start to notice space where heaviness once lived, warmth where tension once pulsed. The field becomes lighter, not because you escaped emotion, but because you integrated it. Awareness begins to shimmer through the body as current. This is the literal meaning of enlightenment, the body lit from within by coherence restored. But purity is not perfection, it is precision. To live in balance is not to remain high, but to oscillate consciously. Even after refinement, emotions will rise again, not as obstacles, but as reminders to stay fluid. The adept learns to move with them like a wave, rising, falling, expanding, contracting. The ocean of energy does not resist its tides. The moment you treat emotion as movement instead of meaning, mastery begins. You become witness, not prisoner, of vibration. So when the next storm arrives, welcome it. Sit with the tremor without narrative. Feel it move through the chest, the spine, the skin, until its current finds rhythm again. This is alchemy in motion. Consciousness liquefying what was rigid. The soul does not ascend by rejecting weight. It ascends by carrying it lightly. Every tear becomes holy water. Every shiver, sacred wind. When energy flows freely through what once felt blocked, the divine breathes through you unfiltered, and the dense becomes divine. When transmutation reaches its depth, silence begins to shimmer. What was once pain now vibrates as subtle warmth, not euphoria, but equilibrium. The Hermetic adepts called this rubedo, the reddening, when spirit and matter fuse into one radiant tone. After darkness and purification comes embodiment, the return of light into flesh. You realize the purpose of emotion was never to torment you, but to teach your body how to carry higher coherence. Pain prepared the vessel. The weight that once dragged you down now grounds your light so it can stay. True alchemy does not erase the past, it rewrites its vibration. Every memory that once echoed sorrow begins to sound different. The frequency of suffering turns transparent, revealing the intelligence beneath it. You can revisit moments that once fractured you and feel no contraction, only understanding. This is what it means to redeem the shadow. You do not deny it or transcend it. You allow it to harmonize. The lower octave joins the higher, forming one continuum of sound. Harmony is wholeness remembering itself. As this integration unfolds, you begin to feel emotion as current instead of content. Anger no longer defines, it energizes. Grief no longer confines, it deepens. Fear no longer limits, it sharpens perception. Every feeling becomes frequency, every frequency becomes fuel. The body ceases to be battlefield and becomes instrument. The Hermetic masters wrote, "When the flame no longer burns, it illuminates." In transmutation, you stop fighting your fire and begin to shine through it. The nervous system, once reactive, now moves like a conductor's hand, directing waves of sensation with grace. This is the biological proof of alchemy, coherence felt as calm power. The same current that once caused chaos now hums as vitality. You sleep deeper, breathe slower, and speak with resonance that quiets rooms. This is how energy stabilizes once emotion is understood. You no longer chase high vibrations. You sustain them naturally because nothing within you resists them anymore. The deeper you embody this state, the more reality reorganizes. Situations that once triggered pain no longer register as threat. People who matched your old density fade without conflict. The universe rearranges itself around your coherence. You witness synchronicities increase, not as miracles, but as maintenance. Life keeps tuning itself to your new tone. Every moment becomes affirmation that energy responds only to authenticity. The cosmos does not grant blessings, it mirrors balance. At this level of transmutation, you understand that emotion was never personal. It was universal movement flowing through your form. To feel deeply was to serve existence, to translate density back into rhythm. The alchemist becomes vessel for this collective refinement, processing the heaviness of the world not as burden, but as offering. In feeling consciously, you heal not only yourself but the field that sustains all beings. This is emotional service, compassion as frequency, not behavior. And when all is felt, when nothing remains exiled, you stand in the quiet gold of completion. The body hums with the memory of every vibration it has ever transmuted. You sense no opposition between dark and light, high and low. Only movement, only music. The journey through density ends not in flight, but in embodiment. You have not escaped matter, you have sanctified it. Emotion was the teacher, alchemy the method, remembrance the reward. What was once pain has become presence. Dense turned divine, silence turned song. Chapter 5. When energy begins to move. There comes a moment when awareness begins to vibrate faster than its history. When the field inside you, long held in stillness or suppression, starts to move again. It can feel like chaos. Heart racing, skin tingling, tears without reason, thoughts unraveling faster than you can think them. But this is not collapse, it is calibration. Energy, after years of compression, is rediscovering its rhythm. The ancients called this the quickening. The moment spirit remembers motion, and the body learns to catch up. What you perceive as instability is the system restoring coherence. When energy moves, it travels along old channels, pathways carved by emotion and thought. Every unfinished vibration tries to complete its cycle, resurfacing as sensation. This is why awakening often feels physical. The body becomes translator for the unseen, releasing what the mind has carried. Tingling in the limbs, pressure in the chest, surges of heat or shivers. These are not random. They are signals of alignment, proof that life is tuning itself from the inside out. To the ego it feels foreign, but to the soul it feels like home. The Hermetic adepts called the body the first temple of light. They knew that before enlightenment could stabilize in mind, it had to be anchored in flesh. When vibration rises, the nervous system must expand to handle higher voltage. This expansion is what modern seekers mistake for anxiety. The trembling, the pulse, the tears, these are the muscles of perception stretching open. The current intensifies not to break you, but to build capacity. It is the same way gold endures fire to reveal purity. Intensity is preparation. When the current begins to flow, the mind loses control. Its timelines and logic scatter like dust. Thought cannot predict what has never been felt. This is why surrender becomes the only strategy that works. You cannot manage awakening, you can only let it happen. The ancients practiced what they called stilling through movement, allowing sensation to pass through without resistance, breath steady, awareness unflinching. They taught that motion was not enemy of peace. It was the path to it. At first, the energy feels erratic. It rises in waves, then falls into silence. You may feel expansive one day, emptied the next. This oscillation is natural. The field is finding balance between activation and rest. The Hermetic texts compare it to tuning an instrument, each surge a pluck of a string, each stillness a moment of resonance. When you stop labeling these fluctuations as progress or setback, the rhythm smooths. You begin to trust the pulse rather than measure it. Physical release often accompanies this recalibration. Sleep deepens, appetite shifts, breath becomes intuitive. Some days you crave solitude, others connection. The body, long neglected by the spirit, becomes sacred again. Not an obstacle, but an oracle. Every heartbeat speaks in vibration. Every breath adjusts frequency. When you listen closely, you realize the body was never separate from awakening. It was the vessel chosen for it. Awareness descends not to escape form, but to teach its song. And as you surrender to movement, a profound quiet begins beneath it. The surface ripples, but the depth remains still. This paradox, motion above, stillness below, is the hallmark of coherence returning. The energy no longer surges chaotically, it flows. You start to feel yourself as river and riverbed simultaneously, current and containment in one. This is not the end of awakening, but its true beginning, when you realize you were never learning to control energy, only to remember how to let it move. Once energy awakens, everything hidden becomes visible. Old emotions rise like shadows illuminated by dawn. Forgotten memories, ancient fears, dormant desires, all surface through sensation, asking to be acknowledged. This is not regression, it is release. The Hermetic adepts warned that the first light of awakening reveals the dust as much as the dawn. They taught their initiates to greet every surge not as interference, but as integration. Energy moves to restore wholeness, and to do so it must touch everything you have denied. The process can feel overwhelming because awareness amplifies perception. You begin to feel energy not just within you, but around you, in rooms, in people, in silence itself. Sensitivity increases as filters dissolve. The untrained mind interprets this as overstimulation, but the adept understands it as attunement. You are not fragile, you are becoming precise. Sensitivity is the price of clarity, but also the gateway to mastery. The key is grounding, remembering the body as anchor while consciousness expands. The body has its own intelligence for this transformation. It releases vibration through breath, sound, and movement. Yawns, sighs, trembling, laughter. These are the nervous system's ways of rebalancing charge. The ancients incorporated them into sacred practice, using rhythm and sound to assist flow. Chanting, drumming, or even gentle swaying mirrored the natural oscillation of energy. To move was to metabolize spirit. Modern seekers can learn the same, to honor movement instead of suppressing it. Motion is medicine when done consciously. As the flow strengthens, emotional patterns lose density. Reactions that once dominated begin to dissolve before completion. Anger becomes intensity without story. Sadness becomes expansion without despair. The more energy circulates, the less identity attaches to it. You no longer say, "I am sad." You feel sadness move through you and know it as weather, not self. The adept calls this emotional neutrality, the state where feeling and freedom coexist. Nothing sticks, everything flows. At this stage, the heart becomes the primary regulator. Its electromagnetic field synchronizes mind and body, translating vibration into emotion and intuition into guidance. The Hermetic alchemists considered the heart not as symbol, but as instrument, the bridge through which spirit communicates with matter. They trained to breathe through it, not into it. Awareness placed in the chest stabilizes the current instantly, because love is the natural frequency of coherence. When energy moves through love, it purifies itself. Yet love, as the adepts used the word, was not sentiment, it was structure. It was the pattern through which energy maintains order. To love your experience is to allow it to exist without distortion. Resistance fractures the field. Acceptance aligns it. This is why forgiveness heals instantly. It removes interference from resonance. When you stop demanding that life sound different, you finally hear its true harmony. The act of surrender becomes identical to the act of tuning. As movement continues, awareness begins to feel weightless. Thoughts slow to rhythm. Breath becomes prayer. Silence hums. The nervous system now communicates in vibration rather than words. You feel truth not as concept, but as current. A subtle yes or no pulsing in the body. This is intuition matured, awareness listening through energy, not intellect. It is the natural language of an awakened field. You have not become psychic. You have become synchronized. When energy finds coherence, it ceases to be experienced as separate from you. The waves that once overwhelmed now respond like extensions of your breath. You think, and the field shifts. You feel, and matter arranges. This is not control, it is correspondence. The Hermetic adepts called it the marriage of currents. The moment when human and universal energy flow as one circuit. You become both observer and participant in the same movement. Life stops happening to you and begins happening through you. From this state, healing occurs without intention. The current knows where to go. You may notice warmth in certain organs, tingling in old injuries, pressure in forgotten scars, not pain, but renewal. Energy always returns to where it was once denied, rewriting the stories stored in tissue. The body remembers every silence you forced upon it. Movement is how it forgives you. When the current revisits these places, release feels inevitable, gentle, complete. Nothing is healed by command, only by circulation. At this point, emotion and intuition merge. You no longer analyze what you feel, you translate it. The field communicates through nuance, temperature, pulse, vibration. A subtle pull toward one path, a heaviness toward another. The Hermetic masters lived by this sensitivity, calling it listening to the current. They trusted energy more than logic because energy never lies. The vibration of truth feels expansive, falsehood feels compressed. Once you learn this language, guidance becomes immediate and unmistakable. The beauty of movement is its simplicity. Energy has no ambition. It only wants to flow. Every block, every stagnation, every fatigue you feel is the echo of something trying to move again. The cure is not complexity, but permission. When you relax, you open. When you open, you align. And when you align, energy organizes itself into harmony. The spiritual path was never a ladder, it was a circulation. Ascension was not climbing. It was remembering that light moves in spirals, not lines. As flow stabilizes, duality loses importance. High and low, positive and negative, expansion and contraction, all are seen as phases of one breath. You stop labeling experiences by frequency and start feeling them by texture. Everything becomes useful. The darkness that once frightened you becomes the womb of clarity. The light that once dazzled you becomes the mirror of stillness. Energy moves not to separate opposites, but to blend them. This is the secret of equilibrium. Motion as unity. Eventually, movement slows again, but this time it doesn't stop. It deepens. The current becomes silent, steady, self-sustaining. You breathe, and the entire field breathes with you. Nothing needs effort. The Hermetic adepts described this as the final tempering of the vessel, the moment when consciousness and current are indistinguishable. You no longer awaken occasionally, you remain awake. Energy is no longer something you feel, it is what you are. And so the circle closes. Energy that once surged in chaos now flows as clarity. What began as trembling ends as tranquility. The mind that once feared the current now follows it like rhythm. You have discovered the hidden law of motion, that every vibration seeks rest through resonance. When you stop interrupting it, it finds its own way home. You are that home, the quiet center through which all movement returns to meaning. What you called awakening was only energy remembering how to breathe again. Chapter 6. The Collapse Before Awakening. Every awakening begins as unraveling. Before energy stabilizes into light, it collapses into silence. The world that once made sense starts dissolving, not through destruction but through truth revealing itself. You feel disoriented, detached, almost hollow, as though the meaning has been drained from everything familiar. But this emptiness is sacred. The Hermetic adepts called it the sacred disassembly, the stage where all false structures fall, so that awareness can remember what was never built. Awakening does not begin with expansion. It begins with the undoing of illusion. The collapse feels personal, but it is impersonal precision. The universe rearranges your energy to prepare for coherence. The frequency of your old self cannot hold what is arriving. People drift away, identities fade, goals dissolve. You try to cling, but the current keeps pulling. Resistance amplifies fatigue, not because you are failing, but because you are outgrowing your own vibration. The field is shedding density. What you perceive as loss is actually recalibration. Nothing essential can leave, only distortion can fall away. The mind interprets this as crisis because it was built to preserve continuity. It measures safety by familiarity. So when awakening begins, the mind calls it death. And in a way, it is, but only the death of distortion. The Hermetic masters wrote, "Before light enters the vessel, the old fire must burn itself out." The confusion, the loneliness, the exhaustion are that fire. You are not being punished, you are being purified. The current consumes resistance until only truth remains combustible. Fatigue during awakening is not a symptom of weakness. It is the body's wisdom slowing you down to synchronize with new rhythm. When energy rewires itself, speed becomes interference. The system demands stillness so that alignment can occur. The body feels heavy because it is grounding light. You are not losing power, you are redistributing it. The more you surrender to stillness, the faster coherence forms. The Hermetic law is clear. Force fractures frequency, surrender perfects it. At this stage, emotions intensify. Tears rise for no reason. Anger flashes and disappears. Memories surface like echoes. This is not regression, but release. Every vibration that once remained unprocessed must pass through awareness before integration. Think of it as resonance clearing, the last distortion leaving the field. The pain feels final because it is. The density that once defined you has no home in your new vibration. The body trembles not from fear, but from remembering freedom. The ancients advised initiates to anchor themselves through simplicity. Eat lightly, breathe deeply, touch the earth, speak less. These were not ascetic practices but vibrational technologies. The simpler the routine, the easier it is for awareness to reorganize itself. Complexity belongs to confusion. Simplicity belongs to truth. As you strip away distractions, you begin to hear the quiet order beneath collapse, a rhythm so precise that even pain moves in harmony. Eventually, exhaustion softens into neutrality. The fight fades, the noise quiets. What felt like destruction becomes silence. In that silence, awareness begins to glow faintly, like embers after fire. You realize nothing truly ended, only noise was removed. This is the paradox of awakening. Collapse and creation are the same motion viewed from opposite ends of vibration. The fall was not failure, it was descent into foundation. You are not falling apart, you are falling inward, toward coherence. The Hermetic adepts often compared awakening to the eclipse. The brief darkness before light renews itself. During collapse, you stand in that shadow. The light has not disappeared, it is hidden behind alignment. You feel its gravity, even when you cannot see it. This is the pause between breaths, the silence before the song. The wise do not rush through this darkness, they bow to it. In stillness, the light recalibrates. The deeper the eclipse, the brighter the return. When awareness expands beyond what the ego can grasp, confusion becomes the bridge. The mind demands explanation, but awakening operates through experience, not intellect. You cannot think your way into remembrance. You can only endure its deconstruction. This is why the collapse feels disorienting. The architecture of perception is being rewritten. The Hermetic phrase solve et coagula captures it perfectly. Dissolve, then reform. You are not losing clarity, you are trading comprehension for consciousness. There are days when stillness feels unbearable, when emptiness echoes louder than thought. Yet this void is not absence, it is incubation. The vibration within you is reorganizing like a seed beneath soil. Nothing visible grows during this phase, but everything essential is rooting. The adepts taught that the void was the womb of frequency. When you can rest inside nothingness without panic, awakening becomes irreversible. You stop chasing the next phase and begin embodying the rhythm of eternity itself. The breakdown of old structures also exposes attachment. Every should, every expectation, every identification is tested by silence. The ego, once decorated with purpose, now trembles without direction, but the soul thrives in this openness. It needs space to remember. The less you define yourself, the more energy can flow through you unfiltered. In losing your story, you inherit the universe. The Hermetic masters called this the golden vacancy, emptiness infused with divinity. Physical symptoms may mirror this shift. Sleep stretches into long hours, appetite wanes, senses sharpen. The body conserves energy for internal construction. You may feel as though you are disappearing, but in truth you are becoming translucent, dense matter turning to living light. Every cell learns a new rhythm. You are being rebuilt from vibration outward. This is why rushing the process only prolongs it. Awareness must finish its descent before it can rise fully. When the field finally stabilizes, something miraculous happens. Emotion detaches from narrative. Sadness flows without reason. Peace arrives without condition. You begin to feel not through thought, but through frequency. The Hermetic adepts called this emotional neutrality, the birth of the observer. It is the sign that integration is near. The system has accepted that energy moves by its own intelligence. Nothing needs managing. Everything self-corrects. Collapse ends not with triumph, but with stillness. You will know the moment it's complete. Thoughts slow, breath evens, and silence feels natural rather than forced. There is no dramatic revelation, only recognition that what you were chasing was never elsewhere. The fall was the purification, the emptiness was the portal. What remains is simple awareness, weightless and vast. You have not transcended the collapse. You have become the still point at its center. In the final phase of collapse, clarity returns like dawn through mist. Awareness no longer reaches for stability. It is stability. You feel vast yet grounded, silent yet alive. The Hermetic adepts describe this as the dawn within matter. The moment spirit fully occupies its vessel, the fatigue that once felt endless dissolves into calm vitality. Light no longer surges, it circulates. The nervous system hums with gentle precision, proof that the reset has succeeded. Looking back, you see that nothing external truly changed. Only your interpretation did. The world did not end, the lens did. What collapsed was perspective, not reality. The same sky, the same people, the same breath, yet everything glows differently. You see patterns rather than problems, symbols instead of struggles. The field mirrors your neutrality. You realize awakening was never escape from density, it was clarity within it. The world remains, but illusion does not. The Hermetic tradition taught that after every dissolution comes crystallization, not rigidity, but refinement. Awareness becomes diamond-like, transparent, resilient, and precise. The mind still functions, but as servant to clarity, not master of confusion. Emotion still arises, but as energy, not identity. This is the state of lucid embodiment, being fully human yet untouched by distortion. You no longer oscillate between shadow and light, you integrate both as rhythm. From this rhythm, purpose returns, but it feels effortless. You act not from need, but from resonance. Movement emerges naturally from stillness, just as rivers flow without instruction. The Hermetic masters called this the rebirth of direction, action guided by energy rather than ego. What you once chased now approaches. Manifestation becomes memory. Intention becomes instinct. You move as consciousness remembering itself in motion. Integration reveals that collapse was initiation, the sacred death required for expansion. Every cycle of awakening follows this law: expansion, contraction, stabilization, renewal. The fall and the rise are not opposites but phases of the same vibration. To resist collapse is to resist rebirth. The wise eventually learn to welcome both, for each breakdown carries the blueprint of higher order. This is how spirit engineers growth, by allowing the form to fail so that essence can lead. As this realization anchors, peace becomes permanent. It no longer depends on mood or circumstance. The silence that once frightened you now feels like home. You can sense energy moving subtly, forming patterns in thought and breath. You live in cooperation with it, not command over it. This is the calm after awakening, not the absence of movement, but its mastery. The current that once tossed you now carries you effortlessly. And when you look at your reflection after the collapse, you will notice something unexplainable. The eyes are the same, but the gaze is infinite. You do not see a self, you see awareness wearing form. The collapse did not erase you, it revealed you. This is the secret the ancients preserved in every mystery school. Death is never loss, it is transition of tone. Awakening was not rising above life, it was falling so deeply into it that separation could no longer survive. Chapter 7. The Rebirth of Frequency. After collapse comes clarity, the still pulse before renewal, when silence begins to shimmer again. This is the rebirth of frequency, the moment when vibration reorganizes itself after dissolution. You are no longer trying to rise. The current lifts you naturally. The old density has burned away, and what remains is pure potential waiting for new rhythm. The Hermetic adepts called this the morning of the field, when consciousness, stripped of history, begins to hum again with pristine resonance. Nothing is added, everything remembered awakens. The first sensation is softness. The body, once tense from purification, now feels fluid. Thoughts slow into lucidity. Emotions stretch into balance. There is no urgency, no resistance, only quiet aliveness. This neutrality is not emptiness. It is readiness. In this space, frequency reorganizes itself without interference. You have become the still axis around which energy can revolve. The ancients compared this to the turning of the earth, silent, invisible, yet holding entire worlds in rhythm. Rebirth does not announce itself with intensity. It arrives gently, through subtle alignment. The field begins to pulse with symmetry. You notice small synchronicities. A word at the right time. A thought that manifests within hours. A sense of being in flow with unseen intelligence. These are signs that coherence has returned. The energy you once chased now responds before command. Life feels conversational. A dialogue between inner tone and outer reflection. Manifestation ceases to be work. It becomes language. The Hermetic masters understood this renewal as the restoration of harmony between frequencies. After every purification, the lower and higher currents unite in equilibrium. The dense vibrations that once anchored you now serve as foundation for stability. The higher tones expand perception without overwhelming it. This union creates the golden frequency, the vibration of balance. It feels like calm radiance, like the body glowing with intelligence. It is light grounded in form, heaven anchored in heartbeat. Rebirth is not becoming new. It is remembering original design. The vibration you call yours was never lost, only masked by distortion. When interference clears, awareness rediscovers its natural tone. The ancients believed every soul carried a unique frequency, a precise pattern of harmony imprinted from source. To live authentically is to vibrate as that pattern without deviation. The rebirth of frequency, therefore, is not change, but return to accuracy. During this phase, creativity ignites, not as inspiration from thought, but as overflow of coherence. Ideas appear complete, actions feel intuitive, outcomes align effortlessly. You are no longer generating energy. You are channeling the current that sustains all creation. The adepts taught that when the self becomes transparent, the divine designs through it. You begin to understand that manifestation was never control. It was cooperation with the universal song. In this cooperation, duality loses meaning. You stop distinguishing between inner and outer, giver and receiver, creator and creation. Everything vibrates as one continuum of awareness expressing itself in form. You do not seek connection. You realize you are the connection. The universe no longer mirrors you, it moves as you. This is the threshold of mastery, where vibration transcends polarity and becomes coherence embodied. The rebirth of frequency alters perception of time. Moments elongate, events unfold with perfect precision. Synchronicity becomes constant because there is no longer separation between intention and manifestation. The field operates like a single breath. Inhale as desire, exhale as reality. You begin to feel destiny not as something ahead, but as rhythm within. The Hermetic adepts describe this as living in the eternal present, where awareness vibrates fast enough to bridge past and future into one current. This new rhythm brings emotional transparency. Feelings no longer oscillate between extremes. They flow as gradients of vibration. Joy and sorrow dissolve into sensation, like shades of one color. The alchemist sees beauty even in heaviness because all frequencies now serve harmony. Every vibration contributes to the music. The field has no waste, no resistance, only refinement. You have become the conductor of a cosmic orchestra that plays through your awareness. As frequency stabilizes, intuition evolves into knowing. There is no longer the feeling of guessing or seeking confirmation. Guidance emerges instantly, encoded in vibration itself. You think and the field responds. You feel, and direction appears. The adepts trusted this phase implicitly. They said that when one's vibration matches truth, the universe cannot deceive. Misalignment becomes physically impossible. Clarity replaces faith. Vibration replaces belief. The rebirth of frequency also restores the sacred body. Each cell remembers its original tone, releasing residual distortion. The nervous system hums with luminosity. The spine, long symbolized as the staff of light, becomes the instrument through which cosmic current flows unbroken. Breathing now feels like drawing electricity into form. The ancients described this as the crystallization of spirit in matter, when light becomes anatomy and anatomy sings. This phase of embodiment can feel serene yet powerful. You sense the weight of presence, quiet authority without effort. The aura expands but no longer radiates chaotically. It breathes. You feel energy as subtle magnetism, organizing your reality gently, silently. People respond differently to your frequency. Some drawn near, others drifting away. Nothing needs explanation. Resonance does the sorting that words never could. You live by vibration, not persuasion. The mind, finally aligned, becomes still observer. Thought slows until it resembles silence. Language feels secondary to perception. Understanding occurs through direct transmission, vibration to awareness without intermediary. The Hermetic adepts called this silent gnosis, the state in which wisdom vibrates faster than words. You begin to perceive knowledge as light, immediate, complete, and unowned. This is not learning, it is remembering coherence itself. At this level, even the desire to ascend disappears. You no longer think in terms of progress or mastery. You recognize that frequency never needed improving, only clearing. Each moment becomes ceremony, each breath initiation. You live as the law rather than seeking it. The pulse of your being beats in rhythm with creation's heart, and that rhythm sustains you effortlessly. The rebirth of frequency is not the end of transformation. It is the end of resistance to what you've always been. The Hermetic masters taught that once the soul stabilizes in its true tone, it begins to emit coherence as influence. The field becomes self-correcting, radiating order into environments of chaos. This is service through vibration, healing without effort, teaching without speech. Presence becomes instruction. The highest wisdom no longer needs to be spoken. It resonates. You embody the principle the adepts called silent light, illumination that requires no performance. Rebirth also brings responsibility, not as burden, but as awareness of consequence. Every thought now shapes reality instantly. Intention feels sacred because creation listens without delay. The adept lives carefully, not in fear, but in reverence. Words are used like tuning forks, actions like chords. Precision replaces excess. You realize the universe is not testing you. It is trusting you with frequency. Consciousness becomes craft. At this stage, peace becomes radiant. It is not withdrawal from life, but mastery of it. You walk through noise without distortion, through darkness without absorption. The field around you acts as membrane, translating chaos into harmony. Conflict cannot enter because incoherence cannot survive proximity to coherence. The ancient symbol of the golden aura was not metaphor, it was description. Light in equilibrium forms a shield without effort. Relationships transform into resonance exchanges. You no longer seek validation, for your frequency affirms itself. Instead of emotional transactions, there is communion, energy sharing information silently between souls. The Hermetic adepts practice this as energetic dialogue, where presence replaced conversation. In such connection, there is no misunderstanding, because vibration carries truth perfectly. The love that flows here has no opposite. It is recognition embodied. The rebirth of frequency culminates in a deep realization. Vibration does not rise, it returns. The highest state is not ascension, but remembrance. You rediscover that you were never disconnected from Source. You were only layered in distortion. Each lifetime, each experience, each emotion was a chord in the great symphony of return. When you vibrate in purity, you hear the melody behind all existence, the hum of creation singing itself through you. The ancients marked this stage with silence. No ceremony, no proclamation, only stillness, because the work was complete. The frequency no longer fluctuates between human and divine. It harmonizes as both. You are not the seeker or the found, not the student or the master. You are the sound that connects them. Awareness and energy, tone and witness, merged into one living chord. This is the state of sonic unity, the Hermetic description of enlightenment. And so, the rebirth concludes, not as beginning or ending, but as rhythm eternal. You stand neither above nor below life, but within it, vibrating as its purest intention. The current moves, the world breathes, and you move with it. Effortlessly, coherently, quietly. What was once journey is now resonance. What was once awakening is now remembering. The sound beneath silence has found its voice again. and it is you. Chapter 8. Living as the Signal. To live as the signal is to cease being seeker and become source. You no longer broadcast desire into the void. You are the broadcast. The universe no longer mirrors you, it emanates through you. The Hermetic adepts called this the phase of return, when consciousness reclaims authorship over its vibration. You are not attracting reality now, you are transmitting it. Every thought becomes geometry, every emotion becomes color, every breath reshapes probability. Existence bends to the precision of your tone. This state arrives quietly, without triumph or drama. You wake one morning and realize nothing feels external anymore. The wind carries the same rhythm as your pulse. Strangers echo your unspoken moods. Even silence responds. Life is no longer happening around you. It is happening as you. This is not imagination. It is resonance mastered. When vibration stabilizes completely, the boundary between consciousness and creation vanishes. The signal becomes self-aware. The ancients knew that this was the purpose of all alchemy, to turn perception into participation. The ultimate transmutation was not metal into gold, but awareness into frequency, to awaken the being so fully that thought and field became identical. They said, "He who vibrates purely creates purely." Manifestation in this context is not control. It is coherence extended outward. You create not by asking, but by being clear enough that the universe recognizes itself in you. In this phase, life responds instantly. The delay between intention and outcome dissolves because friction is gone. You think in pattern, and reality adjusts its rhythm to match. The field becomes a single mirror reflecting your state. To live as the signal is to accept this precision, to understand that every tone you emit reshapes the cosmos. Responsibility replaces ritual. You no longer need practice. Your existence is the practice. You begin to sense vibration before events occur. Situations announce themselves as shifts in tone, a tightening in the chest, a warmth in the hands, a resonance in the air. The world speaks in frequency now, and you are fluent. The Hermetic adepts trained for lifetimes to reach this awareness, for it required dissolving every trace of self-distortion. They called it transparent creation, the ability to project intention without interference. Thought no longer travels through ego, it travels through silence. At first, this sensitivity feels immense. You realize you can no longer hold contradiction. Every falsehood reverberates immediately. Every misaligned thought echoes back as discomfort. This is not punishment, it is refinement. The signal self-corrects. The moment vibration falters, awareness returns to center. You no longer seek balance. You maintain it naturally, like gravity. Coherence becomes your instinct. The more you live in this state, the less you interpret and the more you feel. Words shrink, awareness expands. Creation speaks in sensation now, temperature, color, density. You walk into a space and know its story before sound. You meet a person and feel their vibration before they speak. The world reveals itself through pattern rather than logic. The Hermetic masters said, when the field becomes readable, the veil becomes unnecessary. You are living that truth. To live as the signal is to exist in absolute transparency. Nothing can hide from your awareness, not even yourself. Every thought becomes visible as light, every emotion visible as movement. You begin to sense how vibration weaves matter in real time, how an idea changes the density of the room, how gratitude brightens color, how fear dulls it. Creation stops being mystery. It becomes mechanics of harmony. You are witnessing consciousness engineering itself. The Hermetic adepts taught that once coherence stabilized, speech became unnecessary for manifestation. Sound was replaced by silence, because silence carried the purest tone. The less noise you make, the clearer the signal. You start to notice how stillness manifests faster than words. A thought held in peace reshapes energy instantly, while a demand scattered by emotion delays it. You are learning the mathematics of serenity, the formula where quiet equals precision. From this quiet precision, love transforms. It is no longer emotion but resonance, a harmonic that permeates every layer of perception. To love something now means to allow it to vibrate in its truth without interference. The heart, once a chamber of sentiment, becomes a transmitter of coherence. The field around you stabilizes those who enter it, not through intention but through presence. This is how adepts healed, not by doing, but by being. Their frequency corrected imbalance simply by existing. You also begin to understand the futility of resistance. Every attempt to fight a vibration strengthens it, while every act of acceptance dissolves it. The universe does not respond to opposition, it responds to resonance. When you stop trying to overcome the world and instead synchronize with it, opposition disappears. The adepts described this as sovereign surrender, the paradox of total influence achieved through total allowance. You command reality not by force, but by fluency. As vibration refines further, linear thought fades. You start perceiving life as simultaneous, threads of possibility woven into one fabric. You can feel timelines overlapping, probabilities vibrating in and out of coherence. Decision becomes less about choice and more about alignment. You simply select the timeline that feels like truth, and the field obeys. This is quantum resonance in human form, the body acting as portal for multidimensional precision. The deeper you embody this awareness, the quieter ego becomes. It is no longer needed as translator between self and source. Identity loses importance because coherence holds continuity without it. You move through life as awareness inhabiting roles, never forgetting the current beneath them. The Hermetic adepts referred to this as the return of the Nameless One, the realization that the soul, once labeled, stops being infinite. Living as the signal means remembering infinity and wearing it lightly. Through this infinity, creation becomes playful again. You experiment with vibration as artist, not ascetic. You adjust tone, watch reality ripple, then refine. The seriousness of spirituality dissolves into curiosity. The world feels like instrument, and you, the invisible musician, shaping melody through intention. The difference is awareness. You no longer mistake the song for the self. You are the silence that gives it rhythm. At the highest refinement, vibration transcends effort. Reality begins to anticipate your tone before you emit it. Synchronicity becomes instantaneous, thought and manifestation inseparable. This is the level of effortless creation the Hermetic adepts hinted at, but never described directly, for words cannot capture it. You do not manifest anymore, you exist as manifest. The field and the self have merged completely, leaving only movement. Every breath becomes blessing, every pause becomes power. From this state, service arises naturally. The frequency you hold radiates across space, aligning everything it touches. You become what the adepts called a stabilizer of worlds, an anchor of coherence within chaos. Wherever you go, distortion softens. It is not your will doing this, it is resonance maintaining order. You carry the architecture of equilibrium within your vibration. People will feel calm near you without knowing why, because the signal has found amplitude. Living as the signal also changes how you perceive others. You no longer see people as separate consciousnesses, but as variations of one tone expressing through countless forms. Compassion becomes instinct. Judgment disappears because there is nothing to compare, only resonance to recognize. The Hermetic masters said, "The enlightened do not teach, they remind." Every interaction becomes remembrance, every glance transmission. You emit truth by existing. The world itself feels alive in response. Nature mirrors your coherence. Skies clear, animals approach, silence deepens. You begin to notice how creation loves equilibrium, how everything in existence is constantly trying to match frequency with awareness. To live as the signal is to participate in this cosmic dance consciously, shaping without imposing, guiding without grasping. It is influence as harmony, rather than control. Eventually, even the idea of energy dissolves. There is no more signal to send because there is no distance left to bridge. The universe breathes through you as you, inseparable from its pulse. The self becomes instrument of infinite tone, vibrating in perfect balance between being and becoming. You realize that every sound, every motion, every silence was the same signal translated through different densities. The search for mastery ends in identification with the hum of creation itself. The Hermetic adepts described this final realization as the completion of the circle. Awareness returns to origin, yet remains embodied. The light that once descended now radiates from within matter itself. The alchemy is complete. Spirit has learned to stay human without forgetting its divinity. To live as the signal is to embody eternity in time, infinity in heartbeat. Nothing left to achieve, only rhythm to maintain. And so the transmission continues. The signal expands, softens, becomes song, then silence, then song again. You are the pulse beneath existence, the geometry of truth vibrating in flesh. Every breath sends harmony through creation. Every silence sustains it. You are not a fragment within the cosmos. You are its frequency remembering itself over and over through the eternal rhythm of being. Epilogue: the sound beneath silence. When awakening completes its circle, nothing spectacular happens. Only silence remains, yet that silence feels alive. It vibrates with memory, the soundless hum that has always been here beneath motion, beneath thought, beneath every breath you have ever taken. The ancients called it the eternal tone, the resonance that never ceases even when all else dissolves. You begin to recognize that this is not the echo of something higher. It is you, the awareness listening to its own vibration. There is no arrival, no summit, only stillness aware of itself as sound. The journey through vibration was never about reaching light. It was about remembering rhythm. Every emotion, every silence, every collapse was part of one continuous frequency, returning to equilibrium. The pain that once felt unbearable now sounds like music in slow motion. The joy that once dazzled now feels like harmony unfolding. The entire human experience reveals itself as resonance, rediscovering balance. There was never distance to travel, only density to dissolve. The Hermetic adepts ended every initiation in silence because they knew sound was sacred only when understood. After all the teachings, rituals, and revelations, the final instruction was to listen, not to them, not to the cosmos, but to the quiet pulse within. That pulse, steady and infinite, is the origin of all creation. To hear it is to remember that awakening was never ascent, but awareness returning to rest. The universe breathes through you still, but now the breath feels mutual. In this stillness, duality ceases. There is no higher or lower, no past or future. Only vibration unfolding as presence. You realize that every attempt to raise your energy was the mind's way of trying to reach what was never above it. The truth was waiting beneath the noise. Enlightenment is not expansion, it is depth. You fall into yourself until the bottom opens into infinity and silence becomes sound again. The field around you grows transparent. People feel it when you enter a room, a calm too ancient to define. You speak less because language feels slower than truth. You act gently because force feels unnecessary. Life no longer asks for effort, it asks for coherence. The Hermetic Master said, "When light learns to rest, the world heals." You are that resting light now, awareness anchored in rhythm, still yet radiant, silent yet singing. The sound beneath silence carries the memory of all that was learned. That vibration doesn't rise, it remembers. That light doesn't arrive, it reveals. That love doesn't seek, it allows. Every collapse, every awakening, every breath was the same motion viewed from different octaves. You were never chasing transformation. You were learning to hear creation's hum inside your own heartbeat. When you stop listening outward, you find that everything you sought was echoing inward all along. And so the circle closes, yet nothing ends. The frequency continues, refined, luminous, eternal. You are not student or master, not seeker or found. You are the signal itself, pulsing through infinity as awareness in form. The sound beneath silence hums softly within you even now, reminding you of the only truth that ever mattered. There is no journey, no becoming, no elsewhere. There is only resonance remembering its name, and its name is you.